and a slam jam.
All right, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, to the Wombo Combo Podcast. I'm breakycpk, as always, joined by BSJ. And this week, not a whole lot necessarily happening, but definitely looking forward to talking some more competitive Dota 2 and having some good discussion. So happy to have you with us. With that in mind, BSJ, how are you doing, buddy?
Not so bad, not so bad. Ready to talk some Dotes. I talked a lot yesterday, though. I had 4 coaching sessions. That's like a record for me in terms of I usually don't accept that many, but I kind of, this weird predicament happened where I ended up getting 4. And me talking for 6+ hours, that's even more than I'm used to handling. So on the mend today, just had myself some nice tea and ready to talk some more.
All right. Well, I'll say this. I actually was tuning into your stream yesterday during some of those coaching sessions. I gotta say, man, you're an awesome coach. I like how you don't hold back in terms of criticism. You're not afraid to tell them when they're clearly doing something wrong, and I'm sure that they learn from it. So
I hope so. That's the goal, at least.
Yeah, no, we won't tell anyone that you paid me behind the scenes to say this, but no, BSJ is...
That wasn't in the script. I don't know why you mentioned that part.
No, but on the real, though, it was actually really cool to tune into, and I definitely picked up some tips myself listening in.
Well, that's why I do it on stream. I'm hoping that not just the person I'm coaching, learns something from it.
Yeah, absolutely. So, cool stuff there. All right, again, as far as our show, though, goes this week, like I said, not necessarily a whole lot taking place. We, of course, got ESL happening, several regions, some interesting results, so we'll get into that shortly here. We'll also talk about the Chinese Dota 2 League, professional league that's been happening, officially wrapped up as well, and the team that won that event, so we'll go over that. And also we figured, there's another pretty hype competitive game coming out tomorrow, specifically one that I am somewhat excited for as well. Valorant, of course, I'm talking about. But what I'm getting at here is that kind of making some points in terms of the success of Dota 2, specifically focused on the competitive scene, and maybe what other games like Valorant could certainly learn from Dota 2 and the positives that the game has obviously helped to foster and develop its competitive scene for so many years. So we'll have some good discussion there, I'm sure, in the later part of the show as well. But first things first, kicking off with ESL, as mentioned. So the regions, even you could say, that certainly are the hype one. Europe and CIS, of course. We are
Wait, what?
Well, yeah, okay. Well,
sorry,
could
continue.
start there. Again, there are some interesting results there. No, but we'll start with Europe and CIS. Believe it or not, probably a little more interest in those regions, despite the bias here. You have, again, it was 4 teams from each group advancing onto the playoffs, and then they play this double elimination playoff. So we take a look how it's shaping up so far. Secret, no surprise, the top dogs. They did finish with that 6-1 record. Again, they did end up losing in the group stages to a team Unique, so take that how you will, but ultimately getting that first place seed. And they're going to have their matchup against Alliance. VP Prodigy continues to be hot themselves. They, of course, are coming off some recent success, and they take Group B, actually, over teams like Alliance, Hellraiser, Fly to Moon, OG included in that, by the way, who did not do too well down there in Group B, finishing with that 1-6 record. So the OG roster may be back, but clearly some kinks and some things to figure out. Granted, they are playing with their issues there. So all that information absorbed. BSJ, what are you taking from all this?
I'm a broken record, man. I watched Mid1 stream today. I can only handle it for about 30 seconds. I literally watched, because he's playing on EU on his stream. So he's playing on 180 ping while he's streaming. And I guess he's practicing. And I'm watching his laning mechanics. And I've watched Mid1 before. And he's a god, his mechanics are just godly. I watched him for a minute and a half, and I watched him Pepega 7 things in a minute and a half. I think I've seen him do less Pepega moves in the course of 20 games, than I saw him do in a minute and a half. So yeah. I just want to say, people trash on OG. I take absolutely. I've been asked a lot over the course of the last week. That's kind of why I'm mentioning this. I take absolutely, I don't take any impression from what's happening to them here. I still fully believe in that roster. I don't learn anything from what's happening in this tournament. On the other hand, though, a lot of teams, I like to see Team Nigma get back. Nice to see Team Liquid squeeze on by. Na'Vi kind of continues to disappoint. none of these other teams really have, excuses or reasons, that they would be underperforming. So I've been keeping general, like I've been trying to keep an eye out on these games in terms of like who's winning and such. But like in terms of time amount to watch Dota, I haven't had the chance. Like obviously I did when I was casting the first ESL. In terms of like the overall meta, it looks like it's similar heroes when you look at like the Dota buff stats and stuff. But it's crazy how quickly things change. Like I think there's certain heroes that are going to be coming back, and I'm wondering how long it might be until they do a competitive. My boy Lifestealer, I think he's back. I think that hero's back. We'll just have to see. That's my sleeper pick of the week.
That's your one bold statement you got going on right there. Okay, I did pull up the Dota buffs as you said. That Lifestealer doesn't have a lot of appearances, only 6 times played throughout all these regions in the event so far. But you think Lifestealer's back? Okay, it's.
I'm saying I just realized it like 2 days ago. So I'm saying like okay. I just want to say little changes and patches make a huge difference. And when you change boots to be percent movement speed to flat, and a hero like Lifestealer who has Rage, which gives you percent movement speed, I was like, yeah, he has like an extra 9 movement speed when he's raged. I was like, that's just free. Like that was just a buff to this hero that wasn't mentioned. And then there were a couple other mechanics that helped him as well. But like, I was just thinking, I was like, Slark and Lifestealer feel better now. And I couldn't really come up with any like reason other than that, where it's like all these heroes that have percent movement speed, Slark from his ultimate, Lifestealer from his Rage. If you look at the patch notes when they worked all that shit, almost every hero that had some sort of percent base movement speed buff got nerfed, like to match the boots change. So I just think it's fascinating. I think these heroes that were previously getting kited, like just don't get kited nearly as easily. So we'll see how it pans out. I called Bounty Hunter off lane for a while, and everyone refused to pick it. So I'm always willing to be wrong,
Absolutely. So keep an eye out for that. But yeah, again, as far as the results are speaking, like, to give my take real quickly on the OG situation, I'm a little. I understand, of course, that point, and yes, they are playing with these handicaps here, but if we're gonna sit here and hype up a team like Team Secret and talk about the success that they've been having, and yes, there's maybe a little bit of an asterisk that there's been online matches, but still they're playing against top tier talent right now, at least in the European CIS regions, and why can't it be the other direction with a team like OG, right? We got to be at least fair in that aspect as well. Now, I'm not saying the team needs to blow up by any means, but with the hype that they brought with Thompson being back, you would have certainly hoped for a better performance. This is definitely a team and a roster, even with the issues that they're dealing with, that could have at least finished top 4 in that group. Again, we're talking about teams like Fly to Moon, Hellraiser, Cyber Legacy, all finishing ahead of them pretty decisively even. So, yeah, well, it's sure they are now back together, and of course some more events to come. We'll keep an eye on how they do, but slightly concerning, a little bit more for me than maybe for you, I guess you could say. So
I'm just telling you, I was living in Arizona for 6 years. There was a long period of time where I asked myself, why am I losing my lane to all these guys in the side lane? I feel like I'm a pretty decent player. I feel like I'm supposed to know I know what I'm doing in these lanes, et cetera, et cetera. And then I couldn't figure it out, and I kind of just gave up. I'm a shitty laner. That's what I kind of thought to myself. And then I came and stayed with Collie in New York for a month. And I won 90% of my lanes. What was the difference? I was on 20 ping instead of 85.
Sure.
So what I'm saying is, if he's on 180 ping and he's your offlaner, he's basically donating free farm to the opponent carry every single game. Like, that's what he's doing. It mainly affects your laning stage. Like, yeah, it affects like other things too. But like, if you're both trying to contest CS and all this kind of shit, all these like little micro movements back and forth in the laning stage, you're basically handing their opponent carry free farm. And I win and lose games based on my lane performance. And that's why I just want to be clear. Like, I'm pretty fucking, passionate about this in terms of like, wow, it really blew my mind how big of a difference that made to me. So I can only fathom like what it's like to play on 180 ping. And when I say fathom, I mean, I will never do it. So no, thank you.
Obviously.
Go ahead.
Well, it is a handicap. Again, there is no doubt in that. It is whenever that topic is brought, and I know we've actually talked about this before. Maybe it was based on them a little bit a while back, but I always think about the name. This goes back to my Han days, but there's a Han player by the name of Slicks. He plays from Australia. He was constantly playing with 200 plus MS. He was known as one of, if not one of the best Han players that we saw as a core player. So now in his case, he was practiced on that because that's what he had to do, right? So I do understand that aspect to it. Mid one isn't necessarily, lately he's been maybe, as you said, playing on European servers, trying to get some practice in. It's not like he's been living that for a very long time. But
I'm gonna ask you an honest question, Break. I want to interrupt you so you can finish
Sure.
your thought with my question in mind here. What do you think of the average skill level of gamers at that period of time compared to now?
I mean, okay, yeah, obviously I'm not going to sit here and say the talent pool of Han players at that time was as good as it is nowadays. Everything has certainly developed, so.
What I'm saying is ping only matters if both players are of somewhat equal caliber of skill.
Sure.
And one guy has no ping and the other guy has ping. Like, if you place mid one on 180 ping against a bunch of 6Ks, he's going to shit on him, right? Like, that's what's going to happen. He's going to shit on him. But, like, these other teams, they're not some garbage players. Like, yeah, obviously they're, worse than OG. But, like, any player of these players' caliber will dumpster you in lane if they have 20 ping and you have 180. Like, that's just – so all I'm saying is back then, I believe that player, Slicks, was incredibly skilled. And I also believe that, like, the overall skill level of everyone else was just lower.
Yeah.
So his ping, like, handicap was overcomable. Like, that's what I would argue, but there's obviously no, proof or whatever.
Well, it's, not to go too much into it, but that kind of is the whole discussion with what World of Warcraft, another game that I have history with, where you talk about classic World of Warcraft, and people are trying to discuss, like, oh, the classic, it was so hard to raid back in the days. No, it's just really that players just sucked balls back then, and they really did not know what they were doing when it came to an MMORPG for the most case. And I was one of those players, and I think we've realized that now. Classic is out, so yeah, that's kind of so. I guess I am agreeing with you certainly on that point.
It's funny, people grow as, like, it's amazing how other people help you grow, right? Like, a lot of my growth as a player has been other people broadcasting their material and me being able to, like, study and watch them and shit. It's just like back then, the age of information of, like, watching other players to learn from. Everyone was on their own little journey, right? Like, they couldn't learn from anyone else. They just had to pick up whatever they could and whenever they could. So I just think it's crazy how big of a difference it has made in gaming, where, like, if one person learns how to raid really well, all it takes is everyone watching that guy, and then they'll be at least, better than they were before, So it's just, I think that's crazy. But obviously we could talk about this for hours.
Yeah, the access has certainly helped the development of everyone for the better. So, all right, but yeah, point is, okay, definitely a handicap. I will not disagree to that when it comes to mid one specifically and what he is dealing with there. But as far as the results go, again, so you got the 4 teams from each group. Like I said, Secret versus Alliance going to be a fun first upper round matchup there. But my boys Liquid, they are still in it. They got bumped to the lower bracket off the bat. They're going to be playing against Hellraisers in their first round matchup. So we'll keep an eye on that. That starts, I believe the playoffs start tomorrow as we're recording this podcast and goes throughout this week into the weekend. So certainly something to follow there. From the European CIS region, there's $200,000 on the line, so some solid money for an online tournament that includes European CIS region. So definitely playing for a bit on top of, as always, pride is there. Let's take a look at North America, South America. So the hype one here. We discussed we discussed it a little bit last week as far as the perhaps expected results, and it kind of played out a little bit maybe, but the surprise you could say is Evil Geniuses going with that 2-3 record in the group stages. They did move on to the playoffs. Again, it's only 6 teams, but 4 of the 6 advancing on to the playoffs. But yeah, EG 2-3 record, crazy, actually going 5-0 with a 10-3 individual game record. So they continue to play pretty well. Team Crazy right there with their roster: Skitter, Bryle, Kazu, Aoi, and Moon Meander. I mean, that's a roster that kind of came up more recently, and they're looking like the strong NA team right now.
Yeah, man. Like we said a couple weeks back, bring in some Europeans, you're good to go. I'm just kidding. I've been enjoying watching them play. I think I think they're good at doing some wonky stuff, and even as simple as like Moonmander's just been playing 4-position sniper every damn game or so, like unless it's banned. That hero's cancer, by the way. It's actually legit.
Yeah.
For anyone watching, it's not a meme. It's definitely annoying as hell if you know how to play it. So the weird ways that Dota has taken us, my main point I have about the NA region is a freaking 4-position sniper. That's never thought I'd say that.
That's one of those. It feels like it ruins your pub games type hero positions, right?
Indeed.
Where it's because these top teams ran it, you're like all of a sudden, oh, I can do that. And support invoker was the same way. Now with support invoker, I'm actually one of those guys that's like, hey, I got to play support invoker now. And, maybe it doesn't go too well. I can understand falling into that trap, but I've had some support sniper games that I've been a part of, not as the sniper, but with them, and you're just like, what are you doing, dude? You don't know what you're actually doing with this. It doesn't work that way, so, yeah.
The thing that I've realized is just as important as it is to play a hero, it's very important to figure out how to play against it. It took me maybe 4 or 5 games against a sniper support where I was like, I guess this is the type of hero I need to be in lane and in game to deal with this hero. And it's like, it leaves me with like 4 or 5 carries I'll ever pick. Cause like any other carry, the rest of the game, you just get Ag Scepter ultied and die. You're like, well, shit. So it's just funny that I kind of got my own glimpse of like what it's like in competitive for a team to just bring out some strat that nobody's ever seen before. And even if the strat isn't the best strat in the game, it might be better than any other strategy if nobody's ever played against it. A lot of Dota is, the experience and understanding of what to do against a certain lineup or whatever. So I just think it's cool. I think that kind of stuff for me is always cool. And part of why Dota as a game, something we can, lead into later in this segment here. I think as a competitive scene, it's just always ever dynamic. There's never a time where you stop learning, stop trying new things.
Yeah. So yeah, the NA SA region got those 4 teams. Like I said, they too, I believe, are going to kick it off tomorrow as we're recording this. Or actually, no, a couple days from now, but only 4 teams, unlike the 8 in the other one. But that'll play out, and they themselves are playing for a $40,000 prize pool. So still some solid money on the line there. But yeah, crazy. We'll see if they can keep up that momentum that they've certainly had recently here. And then that leaves us with China. So might as well just quickly go over that. You got LGD and Invictus Gaming going to be matching up, and then CDEC and Royal Never Give Up in the other matchup going to the playoffs. LGD, which kind of a spoiler too, they have finally found a bit of a groove. It's online play, but hey, it's something. A team that's been struggling this season, to say the least. They won the China Dota 2 Pro League, and now here they are qualifying first out of their group in this one. So maybe LGD is back in the China region.
Yeah, I always hope for them. It's always nice to see top-tier players back in form. It's like the only people we get to watch play Tier 1 level Dota. So I'm looking forward to seeing their progress as it comes along. This is kind of okay, you've got my attention now. Let's see with what you do. Let's see what you do with it next, kind of thing.
Absolutely. So, yeah, not too much else to go over on that aspect. As mentioned, they did also win the China Dota 2 Pro League, so they defeated Invictus Gaming in those grand finals, 3-1 actually in a best of 5. It was a couple of days ago, I believe, May 31st there. So yeah, yesterday even. So, congrats to them again. Looking like we'll see how they continue that momentum out of the China region themselves. So, before we advance on though to the discussion to be had, wanted to, of course, talk about Midnite.com. So we want to take this opportunity to thank our betting partner, Midnite, for supporting this podcast. If you're watching or listening from the UK, please use code WOMBO to sign up because it helps us keep the lights on, you could say. Midnite are an esports dedicated betting company, so they run regular promotions and leaderboards with weekly prizes. So get involved and remember to use code WOMBO when you register. Check out this commercial, and we will be right back. right, there you go. Again, midnite.com. And speaking of that, might as well go over a couple of odds ourselves. Talk about what we think and how they're looking here. So we'll start strong here. We'll start with got Team Liquid, as mentioned. They're going up in the lower bracket against Hellraisers. It's a 3.00 for Hellraisers and 1.35 for Liquid. So it is favoring Liquid fairly heavily, you could say, for a playoff match. But Hellraisers is a team they've kind of been one of these dark horse CIS teams, I feel like, as of late. They've done solid enough, and of course in this case even qualifying for the playoffs. So what do you feel about those odds there?
Like I said, it's always tough to bet on the favorite, but I do agree that Liquid is a pretty heavy favorite. So that one's really close for me. I think those odds are very appropriate. I'd probably take Liquid, though.
Yeah, this is one of those, I'm almost scared on how good it is as far as the favorite towards Liquid for obvious reasons. Yeah. But I am going to agree with you. I am going to go with Liquid in this one. 1.35, still something to be had there. And you got to have confidence that this team has found some momentum themselves recently, and certainly should beat a team like Hellraisers in your best out of three. So
Hellraisers is Funnick, right? I'm not crazy.
Let me double check on that before I say yes. I believe so. But yep, it's Nyx, Kasani, Funnick, Funnick, and Roger Maposhka.
All I know is I watch Funnick's team, and it's him picking Timbersaw and losing like every single game I ever watch. So it's kind of interesting to me, teams like that. Obviously, they're in the top four, so they're not terrible. I never thought they were a terrible team. I just think by chance, people will say, BSJ, I'm tuning into your stream, and you're always losing, And I'm like, well, I guess you've tuned into the one game of the day I lose every time. No, I'm kidding. But it's just funny. I every time I think of Hellraisers, on a very small side note, I'm always like, that's the team that picks Timbersaw and loses. Oh, sorry. I'd be curious to look up their win rate with Timbersaw, but yeah, good stuff from.
We'll see if that's a hero that they choose tomorrow in that matchup against Liquid and prove you wrong.
That will even tilt the odds even more so in Liquid's favor.
If they pick Timbersaw, it just all of a sudden takes off.
You can take the BSJ seal of approval on that one.
There you go. You got it going there. Another big matchup, of course, one that we mentioned. Now, this is very interesting, but take it how you will. Secret versus Alliance. Obviously, Secret is the favorite. And boy, do I mean favored, according to these odds. 1.09 to 6.40. I mean, this is Alliance we're talking about. This isn't, a team that you just expect them to roll over necessarily. Alliance is certainly a very quality team, but the Midnite.com odds, now for good reason I think you could say, because we talked about it was last week's show, I think, or the week before, Secret's on a hell of a streak as of late, man. They are looking very good the last 100 matches, some of the best we've ever seen in Dota 2. But these are some damn favorable odds, BSJ.
Are there also odds for who takes the series?
So I believe these are series odds.
These are series.
Yes.
Odds.
Now
Okay.
you can break it down by map. So I mean, there's that too.
I got you. I was just curious. So these are series odds. That would definitely be a series that, like, as a gambler myself, I'd put $2 on Alliance, and be like, if I win, I get free dinner. If I lose, whatever. It made
I lose a candy bar.
Yeah, I paid $2 to get more entertainment. That's like usually how I look at those types of series. I don't think I'll ever bet on a team, not because I don't think they're that favored, but like, why would I ever bet, $1 to win 9 cents? That's just my personal opinion.
Yeah, that's true.
Nothing's on the line, everything to lose, nothing to win. Well,
Sure.
It's like, I've got barely nothing to lose and everything to win. I'm sure that's what people who do lottery tickets do too, but I'm not saying that's necessarily right, but that's how I would look at it.
Yeah,
the entertainment value.
There are those that definitely have that mentality of it's free money, even if it's 1.09. They're just going to win, all right? So no matter how much you put, you're going to get at least some kind of return. So I do understand that logic, but I'm with you, man. This is one of those I would bet a little bit on the more lighter side, but definitely go Alliance, right? Like this.
I would be the guy that's like waiting in that series in Twitch chat where, if Alliance just somehow wins, I haven't said anything throughout the course of the entire series, and I'd say Secret better fan straights kick W, at the end of the series as Alliance takes it. That's I'd be spamming that shit. I'd be one of those guys in chat. I don't know if you've ever seen those guys, but that's what it's all about. You're not even doing it for like the $15. You're doing it for the kick W's you can give to all the other people that lost money while you while you believed in the TI3 champions,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, let's head over for our last one here, the NA South America region. In this case, NA, as far as the matchup goes, we have Evil Geniuses taking on Business Associates. Now, again, really interesting here, as I just mentioned, EG, they have a 2-3 record in the group stages. Now, granted, that's also what Business Associates had. They were also 2-3 with the same 6-7 individual game record. And it is worth reiterating, Evil Geniuses is, of course, playing with a couple stand-ins, Ryoya and Bulba specifically. But that matchup taking place, the odds there are EG 1.69 to Business Associates 2.08. So a little bit closer. Definitely solid odds on both teams, but it does slightly favor EG in that case, even despite Business Associates winning their group stage match. So take that into consideration.
Yeah, that's a close one too. I'd probably take Business Associates on that one. I think EG looks kind of shaky, and obviously with 2 stand-ins, that's a factor. But I don't care about excuses when it comes to betting odds. I just care about whether or not I think those reasons that they're playing worse will apply to this series. And I think Ryoya is really good in a game where his lane's good, and I think any other games he can be a bit underperforming. Like, he's not very good otherwise. And with Bulba, I think he has a version of this NA syndrome that we all have in NA, but I think Bulba really encompasses a lot of NA, even more so than most NA players. And this syndrome is, this is how the game was supposed to go. And if it doesn't go perfectly, I'm still going to play the game like it went perfectly. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Okay.
Adapting isn't a thing, really.
Yeah, it's just like if we were supposed to be up by 5K at 20 minutes, at 20 minutes into the game, I'm going to be playing like I'm up 5K at 20 minutes, even if I'm down by 2K, That's my only issue with Bulba as a player in pubs. I feel like, if he's a Necrophos and in a good Necrophos game, he's supposed to be able to just walk down lanes and shove lanes and, tank initiations and shit. He'll do that even if he's not capable of tanking that initiation. And so, like, in a really good game, I think Bulba looks really good as a player. And I think in a game where shit's kind of gone down, he kind of does the same as, like, what I think about Ryoya when he loses his lanes. So that's why, for me, I think EG's been a bit less consistent with these 2 stand-ins. And I think BA as a team is not flashy. They're not exciting. But I think they'll get the job done.
But they got the eternal envy factor.
True.
BA. That's what they got going for them. And yeah, just to reiterate too, again, the roster of BA, Moo, Eternal Envy, Brax, Snaking, and Fear. Since I know things have changed around a little bit over there too. So there you go. That matchup happened. I guess for myself, again, I like the idea of betting for the underdog usually in this one. So I hate to sound, as if I'm just agreeing with you always, but I am going to agree with you here. Definitely. It's sound logic. So
you're allowed to have your own opinion, Brady.
I don't want to. Tell me what to do, BSJ. Business Associates, no. I would definitely put it on them, though, because if anything, this is a very close potential matchup, but you certainly are getting the better odds with BA at that 2.08 there. So there you go. Again, check it out, guys. Midnite.com if you would like. So that takes us into our discussion to be had as far as mentioned earlier. Obviously, Dota 2 has definitely been around for a while now. You can say almost coming up in 10 years. Obviously, it was supposed to have TI-10 coming up shortly here, but circumstances happening. But point is, it's had a very successful lifespan, and especially with a game like Valorant coming out tomorrow, it's supposed to be a very competitive, focused game from the very beginning. Of course, Riot, the team behind it, and they've certainly had their own success. Not that I want to... It's always funky, right? The idea of, like, talking about Han is one thing. I come from that game, and I think Han and Dota 2 are a lot more similar, of course, but you mention League of Legends, and people just cringe, and then there's people that are like, how dare you say those words? But whether or not you like the game, Riot has done an amazing job in terms of having a great competitive scene themselves with League of Legends. So they certainly have their own lessons that they can learn from to help with Valorant. But at the other side of it, too, there is plenty that Dota 2 has done that you would hope, not only Valorant, other games in general, but again, this being the hot one that's coming out tomorrow, like I said, potentially may follow if they want to be successful. So Yeah, as far as off the bat, there's one to me as somebody that's more on the spectating side, and I think nowadays more and more games are starting to understand is some kind of spectating slash replay system to take advantage of. Dota 2 did that phenomenal off the bat with Dota TV. Of course, they had it with the HLTV side of things too, but they did a great job of implementing it. And the idea as just a simple player, I could just go into a game, any game really that I want, whether it's competitive or even my friends playing, and watch their game with my control from their perspective, etc. It's phenomenal. Having that control is amazing, and I definitely think is something that these games need to make sure that they have at a very basic level when it comes to focusing competitive side. So, anything at a follow up to that, or?
No, I think the replay system is really important. I didn't think about it coming into this conversation, but yeah, I completely agree. It's something that I personally know I've taken for granted. Simply because I've never played a game that I wanted replays of and didn't have them. So since I've been playing Dota for 7 or 8 years now, definitely a big deal for me that we have that. I just don't always think about its importance because it's a privilege I've had my entire career.
Well, real quick, I was even thinking about that. As I mentioned, I was watching your stream yesterday with your coaching. Like, the idea of even something like that, right? Like coaching wouldn't even be possible if we didn't have the ease here of the tool. So that's just another.
Coaching would be possible. It just have to be live.
A lot more difficult.
The big deal for me about live coaching is that there's plenty of games in Dota where you just can't really learn too much from them, right? Because some crazy bad thing happened or somebody griefed the game or whatever. And I used to do live coaching, and that was a problem where like 1 out of 4 of the games would just be some guy feeding down mid or something, and I'm like, I guess I'll spend an extra 20 minutes with you to make up for that game. And it's like, that doesn't feel good. So yeah, from that perspective, it's great. As somebody who was trying to get better at Dota over time, that was great to watch pro players replays from their perspective. That was incredible. I think taking like the best of both worlds from games that are currently popular, I think there's a lot of things League has going for them, mainly the like system they have for leagues and like constantly, the seasons that they got going. I think that's like really important. Obviously, Dota's kind of adapting that itself, or at least trying to next year, whenever that may be. But I think with Dota, the big thing for me that really stands out against other games like League is the hero diversity. There's really no end to the level of creativity that is left by the balancing of Dota. I think from what I've seen in a lot of other games, they're very extreme with their balancing. And I think in Dota, the way that it is balanced is so perfect. Like for me, I think that's the reason why Dota is the game it is, amongst other things, is the level of balancing and the method they go about balancing the game. Most notably, like a hero's super busted, nerf it just a little bit. People still pick it every game, nerf it just a little bit more. And it's like eventually it won't be good enough, but it'll still be viable. Like it's not good enough to, pick it every game, but it'll still be viable. And even though there's always going to be this, there's absolutely no way to like balance 120 characters. There's going to be 20 or so that hardly ever get picked. There's going to be another 20 or so that get picked a lot. I don't think there's really any way around that. But the fact that like almost every major Dota 2 tournament has like 100 plus heroes picked or banned every time, like especially at TI level of a caliber tournament, this whole idea of like anything can work, leave it up to the creativity in the minds of the people playing your game. I think that's something that League really doesn't do that well. And I would hope that newer games as they come out, if anything, Dota can have a lasting impact on the future of esports in that regard. That's like a big thing for me about Dota that makes Dota what it is.
Yeah, so to kind of follow up on that even a little further, Dota's not been afraid to make changes. If anything, though, it's in sections, though, right? Like, yes, there's minor patches here and there that will happen, with even like 2 weeks later, as you said, to make some minor adjustments, realizing, okay, maybe whatever hero was a little too powerful. But then there's the big patches that take place after ideally a set of tournaments happen, or when there's that broken down time, right, where that's ideally going to give people at least a week or two to practice on it and then play some more. So, I definitely with you there. That's something that a lot of these games that are going to be focusing on the competitive side, they want to ideally have that diversity. And we know there's other games out there that Overwatch is definitely one of those that comes to mind where you get a very, very stale meta as far as the characters that are selected in those games, and it is an issue as both a
it makes it terrible to watch. Like, who wants to watch the same thing over and over again?
And as a player, and I was going to say
yeah.
that, but also as a player, right? Like if you're still playing the same thing over and over again, that it's not necessarily the most exciting thing. So now again, we're comparing a lot of these different kind of games. So yes, MOBA is of course one thing. Now comparing it to an Overwatch, or in this case a Valorant, as we're talking about with them coming out, there's a little more limit in terms of the amount of selection that you do have. So that's understandable, right? That obviously they can't be as diverse, at least initially. But I am with you totally that do not be afraid to make changes. Make changes when it's called for. It's in Overwatch's case, frankly, and we'll see with Valorant coming out. I feel like the designers behind the games have been very hesitant. They went, oh, well, we need more data. And then there's also that idea, right, of, well, we don't want to ruin it for the casual player base, but we understand it's maybe not the greatest for the competitive. And then you kind of get that side of it too. It's, well, then where do we find this balance between the casual and the competitive side? So, hey, Dota 2, in my mind, has been a competitive game from the very beginning, and I think that's been shown with Ice Frog and crew. And with Valorant, especially, and how much they're pushing it to be a competitive game, I would hope that is something that they take seriously and are willing to balance focusing on the competitive side, certainly. So definitely with you there as far as what others can learn. I guess one other one that's one of the one that is there's definitely more conversation to be had on, and not to draw on too long, but the idea of allowing third-party organizations to support your game. Whether that's in Counter-Strike's case like a Faceit, or that even support the matchmaking side of it, but also the tournaments. Dota 2 has always been about embracing community. Sometimes, for, I don't want to say for the worst, but it's obviously drawn some controversy in some avenues. But overall, I definitely think that's been very, very helpful in terms of the success of Dota 2 over the years, allowing the community to host their events wherever it may be, but then also putting on your own. That's where I'm a little bit concerned with a game like Valorant, that it is going to be limited down the line. Now, Riot has stated initially that community events can be hosted, but that's just initially. We'll see what happens as time goes on for them. But I do think that's one thing that I think allowing community to run their events in hand with your team or organization is important.
Yeah, I can get behind that. I actually have nothing to add to that. I just agree with you. I think that aspect of it is so different from game to game, as well as like how each game creator goes about approaching it. So I it's not something I usually think about too much, because as a player or like a streamer, that side of it isn't something you interact with, but it's something you obviously feel the impact of. So it's like, it's kind of interesting how esports is like that. So yeah, I agree with you there. And I think all I can say is, like, every game and every like system we got going for esports right now, there's so much that can change. There's so much like still to be figured out. And with every game, all I hope is that they take pieces of what's already working for other games and then make it their own. I think Dota has been really good about the way they approach the game. You can take whatever hero you're playing, whatever strategy you're going for, and you're working on this innate balance that Dota has, but you kind of just make a hero your own. You make every hero, and people may say like this happens in, MMORPGs and stuff, but like in most other competitive games, I feel like whatever character you're playing, there's like this strictly optimal way to play it, and you just have to master that, in like fighting games and stuff, master that combo, master that series of button pressing. And I think if other games can manage to replicate that aspect of Dota, just like how I think every game should have the way they approach, tournament organizers and everything, that should be their own thing. But like, I think in the actual gameplay itself, whenever I talk about other games, I'll always be focused on the gameplay, because at the end of the day, I'm playing these games 10 hours a day or whatever. So that's all I can ever think about. Whenever I hear something about the rest of Dota, I'm like, but how does it affect the gameplay? You know what I mean? So it's funny to hear your perspectives, because all the things you think about are things that are like, I know exist, but they're not at the forefront of my concern, but they're definitely important. I just think it's funny how even individuals like you and I, have such different immediate first thoughts about something like this.
Yeah, I come from more of the behind the scenes and a spectator. You're certainly more the player, so it's certainly interesting to hear.
A lot of people you got to make happy.
Exactly, there is.
That's basically what I'm thinking. Yeah.
Hey, being a game designer is not easy. Being on that end is certainly not easy. I've been at least behind the scenes, talking with several that go through the pains of, well, do this to this hero. Okay, well, we tweaked him a little. Why did you tweak this hero? You should have tweaked it that much. It's like, oh God, no, what am I doing? It could be rough. It could be a rough life. It certainly can be. But no, the balance side is Dota 2. We are spoiled in so many ways. Absolutely. So, I think that covers it, though. I think that's some good things. Let's go takeaways from what's made Dota 2 successful over the years, and what other games like Valorant can certainly learn with their launch. So obviously best of luck to them. Again, I bring this up. I personally am a fan of the game, and I have history with Counter-Strike specifically for many, many years. So I am excited for what Valorant is going to bring, but I don't know if I'm very hopeful just yet as far as the success in the competitive scene, unless they definitely make some changes that, again, Dota 2 has had. Specifically on the spectating side, they don't even have a very good spectating UI yet, let alone replays in the game. And that's why that was one of the first things that I brought up. And kind of making that comparison to League of Legends. Now, I'm not very familiar with League of Legends over the years, frankly, but I do know for a fact that they did not have a replay system in their game for, I want to say, at least 6 years, maybe even longer. And that to me is just, what are you doing? You need that. That seems like
there's really no excuse for that one.
Yeah. So again, spoiled in a lot of ways with Dota 2, and thankful that Valve has put in the work for what they've done for the game. So I think that is a good stopping point, though, BSJ. Good place to wrap up. So as always, any final words from yourself?
Nope. I've said enough to combine in the last 2 days. Usually I say probably more in our podcast, but I was
you've been talking a lot.
I've been talking a lot. Let's just leave it at that.
Had this coaching session.
About more Dota next week.
All right. Any coaching sessions coming up?
It's almost always on Sunday, but I've also been doing a new series with Ari, the SCA host that you see in all the events. He's a newbie, but honestly, I will say that with the whole COVID situation, one cool thing that's happened is I've had a lot of signups of people that didn't previously had time to play Dota, but are super enthusiastic about it. And I don't really mind how, like, people ask me, BSJ, I'm 1,000 MMR, do you mind if I sign up for coaching? And I'm like, I don't care what MMR you are. You pay the money and you're ready to learn. I don't care. I want people who are enthusiastic about learning the game of Dota. And I will say that some of the people like Ari, their attitude towards learning the game, it just makes me happy, man. I'm just like, Dota's a beautiful game. I had a guy that's just like, his wife, this was my guy yesterday, one of my funniest coaching session signups in my entire career. And he said, my wife is immortal. Like, she's really good at Dota. And I've never played before. And I just started playing about 8 months ago. And he was telling me all this kind of stuff. And I was just like, and he's like 1,300 MMR or something. And I was just like, yeah, so man, like, this was like an hour in. I was just like, hey man, like, why are you here? Like, why are you actually wanting to get better at Dota? And he was just like, yeah, man, I just started playing about 8 months ago, and yada, yada, yada. I just love this game, man. And I was like, he's like, it's an awesome game. And I was like, it really is. And like, cool. For me, a lot of the reasons I play Dota is it's just an awesome game. Every time I get upset about bad teammates, there's a reason why this game still has me coming back. It was a pretty cool experience the last few weeks for me. Like, I've just had really great students that they just want to learn, man. And Dota in that purest form is what it's all about. So a lot of people miss that, I think.
Dota 2 is a very difficult game to get into. There is no ifs and buts about it. I am thankful that I got into Dota way back when, as the boomer that I am, because getting into it nowadays is absolutely a very difficult task. Compared to, especially again, there really isn't a tutorial in Dota 2. Valve, that's one thing Valve hasn't been the greatest about, but people like yourself, BSJ, with
that's why I'm having to make up for their
exactly. That's where you come in with your streams and the coaching session. So yeah, definitely check it out, guys. Go to his stream if you haven't even heard about that. And awesome coach. Got a vouch here. All right, so you can pay me later after saying that.
Yep.
No,
not quite as much.
We're gonna wrap up. We're gonna wrap up though before we get into too much more trouble. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you as always for tuning in. Really do appreciate it. Shout out to Midnite.com. Shout out to you guys again. Hit that follow button, that sub button, whatever. It supports us and keeps us going. From BSJ, myself, breakycpk. Have a good night. We'll see you next time.